Hello friends, welcome to The Buzz. On this episode, we're getting a VIP tour of one of the rarest, possibly in the world, habitats, the dolomite prairie. Then we'll head to a more common forested area to test your knowledge on tree leaf ID. Get ready for your questions to be answered and to be quizzed yourself on this episode of The Buzz. We've explored many habitats in the past, from shady forests to flowing rivers, but today we're going to explore one of the rarer ones, the dolomite prairies. These native grasslands are unique because they have a mixture of ingredients like a shallow soils mixed with magnesium-rich limestone, creating that dolomite name. Join us to discover the story of these rare plants and animals and how it's protected today. Our guest expert today to share amazing stories and these amazing places is Land Management Program Coordinator Floyd Catchpole. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Susie.
When we asked you to be on the show, you went to dolomite prairies. You wanted to share those. What makes this special?
Well, it's one of the rarest communities in the world, actually. Dolomite prairies need two things to exist. One, they need to be in an area that has prairies. And two, they need to have a lot of glacial activity with water just pouring across dolomite bedrock and scouring all the soil off of it.
So you mentioned glaciers, and that is just mind-blowing to me that so long ago glaciers can shape the land. Can you give us more detail on like how step one to step two to today?
So it's a pretty amazing story. About 15,000 years ago, when Lake Michigan was completely covered by glacial ice, the water poured through the Valparaiso moraine in what's now the Des Plaines River Valley. And it came through in such massive flows that it literally removed about 40 feet of bedrock here. And the bedrock happened to be made out of dolomite. And so this rock lay naked to the sun for thousands of years while a little bit of dust and material blew over it and the plants grew up. And starting about 8,000 years ago, it became surrounded by prairie. And that's when the prairie plants moved in. Started making this really unique ecosystem that only occurs under this very small set of conditions.
Illinois being the prairie state, it's interesting to know that a lot of our prairies have disappeared over time with development and grazing and all sorts of things. How is it that this specific one has stayed around?
Part of it is just that it is a dolomite prairie and the bedrock is so close to the ground. It can be as little, well, it can be right at the surface or a foot down, and it's just too shallow to plow.
Yeah.
And the soils dry out really fast. So when you're producing crops, you just can't have soil that dries out that fast.
With such a specialized place like this, I am sure there's very specialized plants and animals that come with it. Do you have any of your favorites or rare finds?
Oh, there's certainly some really neat stuff here. This is the only place that I know of in northeast Illinois that has 3 federally listed species. We've got the leafy prairie clover, the Heinz emerald dragonfly, and the lakeside daisy. And they all have amazing stories with them, and it's just incredible to have that many rare plants all in one place. Yeah. So, and a couple of interesting turtles as well. This river valley has the only population of the spotted turtle in the state of Illinois.
Okay.
So that's pretty amazing.
Well, how about you take us on a walk and show us some cool things that we find. Give us more information, kind of meet and greet with the plants.
All right, we'll do that.
All right, so what do we find?
Well, this right here is a lakeside daisy. It's one of the plants from the population that we established in the Des Plaines River Valley. And it's doesn't look like much.
Yeah, you would never know this is something so special.
No, it just gets little daisy-like flowers in the springtime, but it's super rare. It's just only in, like say, just a handful of places in the United States, and here it is, happily living in all this rock.
Yeah, I'm so surprised to see all the rock, and it's
rocking
and rolling, if you will.
It is. Oh yes, it is. this lakeside daisy, you can see flowered this year, and one late bloomer is almost in bloom. And it's fairly small daisy, so you can see a yellow when it's actually in flower. Yep. And it's just a pretty little sight out on the prairie. But here we have one that's doing a really late bloom, probably due to the strange weather this year. But sure enough, going to have a really late flower. Normally they're long done.
We're sitting in this kind of field of these blooming flowers that at first glance look really pretty, but there's more of a story here. They're not necessarily supposed to be here.
Yeah, this is called soapwort, and it's a non-native plant that persists in growing in some of our places where we really don't want it growing. And it's a lovely thing. And unfortunately, some of our invasive species are lovely.
Are pretty, yeah, that's what we've been fooled to bring them here.
Right. And this one actually was used by pioneers to make soap with, which is why it's called soapwort. And so it keeps persisting in places sometimes we don't want it to, and we do try to get rid of it, but there's so much to do.
Yeah. And how do you is it a pulled plant? Do you try to burn it to get rid of it, or is it a sprayed?
There are some, it's a sprayed plant. There are some herbicides that are very more specific. They only target plants from certain families. And so we use those and are able to control it in many cases.
So I see we're in lots of cattails. And what do we think? What column, pro or con?
Sadly, con. We have a native cattail that I don't see growing anywhere around me, and that's the broadleafed cattail. And this is the narrow-leaved cattail that was introduced some time back, and it's very aggressive, spreading in the landscape, and it hybridizes with our native cattail. And so I remember 20 years ago when there was lots of broadleaf cattail around, and not only did it get getting hybridized out of existence really, but even the hybrids outcompete the native. So I foresee a day when there will be no broadleaf cattails left in Illinois. And because it's so aggressive, it was taking over this prairie and sedge meadow community here. So we've started a really aggressive program of controlling the cattails here, and quite successfully. I mean, you look at how it's starting to come back here, and it's beautiful. From over where the trees are over there, over to where we're standing, and probably a little beyond it, was a band of cattails that ran way up and down the valley here. And so it was, the wetter parts of the valley were probably 80% cattails. So this has been a huge change. And this is where that Section 206 program is really helping to provide funds for this. But the Forest Preserve is also doing the similar kind of work on our other preserves in the Des Plaines River Valley. And it's really rewarding to see these communities coming back.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, after putting all the hard work in, you want to have some sort of success. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great.
Gratification.
Yeah, we've really figured out how to do it, as you can see, without making a complete mess of everything. A lot of it
a lot of things are sneaking back in.
Yeah, they're actually using wicking bars, which is a bar with herbicide in it, because the cattails are taller than the surrounding vegetation when they apply it. Yeah. It just wipes the herbicide on the cattail and only kills the cattail without killing what's underneath. And then in other cases where it's sparser, people will wipe the herbicide onto the plants and kill them that way. So you can do a lot without harming the other vegetation. Yeah. Well, this is one of the first ones we started in, and it had big money. So this is further along than anywhere else. We're also doing other sites in the Des Plaines River Valley, Rock Run Preserve, and I believe Goodnow Grove, and a handful of other sites. We're starting on the cattails, but this is really the most advanced, and it was really hard on me watching some of this go away for a while because the cattails kept expanding and shading out everything, or most everything beneath them. Cattails are tough. They have a really waxy surface on their leaf, and that makes it hard for the herbicides to penetrate. Yeah, in about 2 weeks, that view will be just freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, look at all those. Those are all blazing star?
Those are all blazing star.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We found another cool flower. I have to say, I've not seen this one before.
Okay.
This is a new one for me.
You probably have, but just aren't remembering. This is called marsh flax. And this beautiful pink flower pretty much only occurs in natural lands nowadays. It doesn't adapt well to a lot of human disturbance. One time it was probably in every wet prairie in the state of Illinois.
We've talked about these bugs before, the Heinz emerald dragonfly, and this is one of the popular places for them. Tell us why this bug is so special.
Well, it's for one thing, it's so rare that it's federally listed, and that makes it really special. And what really makes it special about our populations is that we have the greatest genetic diversity of any remaining population here, right here in the Des Plaines River Valley. So that makes it a really important population.
Yeah, for sure.
So here we have a dragonfly that lives in habitat not too different from what we're standing in right now, which doesn't look quite as wet as we usually think of dragonfly habitat. It's not a pond, it's not a river, it's just a sort of a wet area with maybe a little bit of water flowing through it, but very little, very small little rivulets. And so it's almost terrestrial. It's right almost on that boundary of being a terrestrial dragonfly. And the larvae spend more time out of the water than almost any other dragonfly.
Really?
And it's kind of slow maturing. But its happy home is in a crayfish burrow.
That's nuts.
So here we have
just nuts.
here we have a crayfish which eats insects, which is cohabiting with a little dragonfly larvae, which is itself a predator, but I have to think that the crayfish is going to win.
Imagine it would win.
But apparently they have a deal.
Just hang,
they got a deal. Yeah, we're roomies. Yeah, I won't mess with you. You don't mess with me. We're all good. And so they both live in these crayfish burrows together, and it can take as many as 3-4 years for them to mature and become the dragonfly that flies around for a matter of weeks.
I was going to say, how long does it live once an adult? That's another thing with dragonflies. You know, their time as a baby is way more than it is.
Right. And so it's just a really, really strange species, both in the length of time that it can take for the larvae to become adults, and just its more upland habitat, and they live in crayfish burrows. Strange roommates. So yeah, it's a really neat insect, and we're just really, really fortunate to have it. There's been a program to breed and reintroduce populations of the Heinz emerald dragonfly here in the Des Plaines River Valley. And DuPage County had a program where they raised some and stocked it into appropriate habitat. And it's really been a big effort.
Yeah, multi-organizations.
Multi-organizations.
Organizations.
I mean, there's federal money being spent here in this valley to try and protect this ecosystem. Here's our third federally listed species here, the leafy prairie clover. And it is very rare, although we have a fair number here, but the deer have eaten the tops off of all these plants.
They're just chopped right off.
Just chopped them off. The deer don't recognize a federally endangered species when they see one. And it's actually a bit of a problem on the preserve. And that's one of the reasons we have the deer control program, is to reduce the deer numbers so that we can actually get reproduction outside of a cage. because over here in the cage where the deer can't get it, we have leafy prairie clover going to seed. We only do it for the rarest of plants. So it's not something that we do for very many species. In fact, I think really the only species we've put cages up for are the leafy prairie clover, because the herbivory was bad enough that, and especially before the deer control program started, we sometimes couldn't find a single plant going to seed because the deer just ate them all off. And so the cages helped, and of course it helped also prove that, yes, by golly, it is the deer doing it.
We've talked about a lot of plants, we talked about some insects, but tell me about the reptiles here.
Well, we've got two really interesting reptiles here. We've got the spotted turtle and the Blanding's turtle, and they're both state listed. And the Blanding's turtle is a prairie turtle. So here we have dolomite prairie, and sure enough, they're here occupying the prairie habitat. And the spotted turtle is more of an eastern turtle, but this is the only place in the state of Illinois, the Des Plaines River Valley, where the spotted turtle still occurs. And so it's really special for us. This little outlier population of the spotted turtle occurring in this river valley, and it likes prairies and marshes and little ponds. Yeah. And so it seems to be hanging in there, you know.
It's nuts how many times you've said, like, this is the only place this so-and-so has lived. I mean, I'm just still in awe how special this place is.
It is pretty amazing that we have this here, you know, right here in Will County. But yeah, nowhere else in Illinois can you see the spotted turtle. Yeah. They're really tiny, little bitty turtle.
And they have spots, I assume.
And they have spots. Okay. Yes, you got it. Yeah. So, but it is important, you know, and we're talking about how many rare plants and animals occur in this valley. It's really important for people to remember that, and to stay on trail, stay where you're supposed to be, because you can walk on rare plants or animals and not even know it, harm them, and not even know it. Yeah, so it's an important thing to keep in mind. So we've been having all this talk about dolomite prairie, dolomite bedrock. So this is it. This is a great spot here where you can see all this dolomite bedrock just baking in the sun.
Yes.
Just like we are.
Yeah, it's a very warm day today.
It's amazing to think that this rock was exposed over 10,000 years ago by glacial floods. And here it is today. We can see the same bedrock sitting out here in the sun. And yet there are plants that are managing to live here. We've got a little skullcap just growing on I don't know what.
They're breaking through the cracks. It's just amazing how nature finds a way.
It is. And a little pen stem in here, a little beard's tongue.
Oh yeah.
With a beautiful little purple flower. And and of course some grasses as well. It's a prairie.
Some milkweeds are mixed in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is the foundation of this whole ecosystem right here. This dolomite bedrock. And though we can't see it, almost everything we've looked at today, this rock was less than 2 feet underneath us.
All right.
So it really just forms this whole ecosystem and makes it what the rare ecosystem that it is. There's so few places where this combination of events, glacial flooding and prairie, all come together in the right way to leave us with these dolomite prairies.
Would have thought just a little rock makes such a big difference.
It does. Well, it's a lot of rock.
It's a lot of rock, yeah, it's not little. Imagine that it's all over.
That's right. Yep.
The benefits are great when you invest in nature by donating to the Nature Foundation of Will County. You can help protect our precious habitats and restore natural areas back to their native state. Provide educational opportunities to unlock the natural world for present and future generations. Support diversity and inclusion so everyone can experience the magnificence of nature. The Nature Foundation works hand in hand with the Forest Preserve District of Will County to strengthen the commitment to land stewardship, nature education, wellness, cooperation, and sustainability. Donations large and small make a lasting and significant positive impact on the environment. Invest in nature and join our growing community. Support the cause at willcountynature.org.
Switching gears to a more forested habitat, I would like to play a little game with you. How many tree leaves can you identify? Leaves are vital for both plants and trees because they are the ones that are making the energy through a process called photosynthesis. That photosynthesis is vital to us as well because it absorbs the carbon dioxide and releases oxygen for us to breathe. However, I once read an article that said that people could identify more fast food chain logos than they could trees. How well do you think you would do? All right, let's do a little warm up. Visualize yourself driving on a highway or a street with lots of stoplights and think about all the logos you can see along the road. How many can you name? Now I want you to visualize yourself walking in a forest preserve or maybe your neighborhood. Picture all the trees along the sidewalk or the trail. How many of those can you name? Next, we'll go through some visual examples. I've chosen the most common leaves and trees from our forested preserves like Messenger Woods, Hickory Creek, Goodnow Grove, and here at Hidden Oaks Nature Center. Now, don't let the leaf size fool you. I purposely picked big ones so they would show up well on screen. I'll describe their key features, and this is where you guess. By the end, I'll tell you the name to see if you were right. We'll start with an easier one. This one's known for its 5 lobes, and they're pointed at the top. Reminds me of our hands for our 5 fingers. You'll also see this one on a Canadian flag, or maybe on your favorite bottle of pancake syrup. This is a maple leaf. Bonus points if you identified it as a sugar maple leaf. There are 5 common maple species throughout Illinois. This next tree is probably one that's more popular in your neighborhoods than the preserves. This leaf is a triangle shape, and it's a big one, and it shows off the wavy edges. But my favorite part is the flattened petiole. And a petiole is the stalk that attaches the leaf to the stem of the tree. And this design helps the leaf dance in the wind. This belongs to an eastern cottonwood. Now you probably know this one more famously for the cotton. It flies and floats off in the springtime, spreading its seeds so it can grow more trees. This one can be a hard one to ID in the autumn when the leaves fall to the floor because the leaflets can become detached. But in this compound leaf, this family has 5 to 7 sets of leaflets, and the edges are very serrated, sharp, jagged points. This belongs to a hickory tree. And I would say our most common hickory in our forested preserves are shagbark hickory. But this one actually belongs to a bitternut hickory, and it's all in the bud. But that's for a whole nother video. This next tree group is also famous for its lobes. So some have pointed lobes like this one, and it even has little bristled hairs on every tip. Or some have rounded lobes like this one. These belong to the oak family. Bonus points if you could identify this as a northern red oak or this one as a bur oak. And oaks tend to be split up into 2 different family groups. There's the pointy red oaks and the rounded white oaks. Another clue to hone into what species of tree, this one upside down looks like a witch. This is its skirt, and here's the witch's hat on top. This leaf is known for its heart shape. And if you look at the base, it's a little asymmetrical, a little lopsided there. And the sides of the leaves are serrated or jagged. They look like you took some craft scissors to cut it out. It also has this companion little leaf that holds its fruit-like nuts. This is American basswood, also known as a linden tree. How did you do? Did you recognize some of these leaves from your walks? Well, I hope you stay curious the next time you're out hiking and you start noticing the leaves around you. My favorite ID app is called Seek. And it may not ID the exact tree species, but it's going to help you learn the tree families. And with almost 185 native trees in Illinois, there's so much to learn, so we can ID them all.
Visit Plum Creek Nature Center on Saturday, August 19th for our popular Hummingbird Fest, where you guessed it, hummingbirds will be the star attraction. This nature preserve is home to a robust ruby-throated hummingbird population, which makes it the perfect place for this free festival. We'll have a variety of family-friendly activities, but the main focus will be these small but mighty birds. This fest features a banding program thanks to the Lincoln Land Association of Bird Banders, which helps educate the public about hummingbirds. You can get up close and personal and possibly even participate in a release. At the fest, you can also learn how to take action to help pollinators. So save the date and fly on out here for this free event.
Nature always holds something new to learn. The more we discover about our rarest habitats to our more common ones, the better we can create a more detailed sense of place. Map your next adventure at reconnectwithnature.org to find which habitats are near you and which ones need to be on your must-explore list this summer. I hope to see you peeking at the leaves, but until then, I'll see you next time on The Buzz.